What's going on, guys? It's Joshy, your YouTube gaming guru, and for today's video, I wanted to talk about a lovely little game that everybody had access to this past weekend, and that game is The Division. Holy crap, has this past weekend been a super exciting time for gamers. Well, any time spent gaming is an exciting time, but this past weekend stood out in particular because of the Division Open Beta. I don't know about you guys, but I've been waiting to play this game since it was first announced at E3 2014. For a while, I thought this game was going to disappear, but here we are, just having played the beta and waiting just a little while longer for the official game's release. In this video, I will be telling you what I thought of what I played, but mostly I'll be focusing on the Division's spicy new approach to multiplayer, appropriately named the Dark Zone. I'll also be talking a lot about the gameplay, the different mechanics that I like and didn't like, and what I thought can be improved on. Keep in mind, all of the points I'm about to talk about are my personal opinion and are based solely on the playthrough of the beta. Just a heads up to all you Destiny haters, I will be comparing this game a lot to Destiny because there are a lot of similarities between these two games that the Division has adapted in their own interesting way. So, let's get to it. For those of you who live under a rock with no access to internet, TV, commercials, or the outside world entirely, the Division takes place in New York City after a devastating terrorist attack. A deadly virus, which is a strain of the smallpox virus, ravages its way through New York on one of the busiest days of the year, Black Friday. The US government decides to activate their Division agents to get the city back under control and set up relief efforts for the survivors. So this part was probably the shortest part of the beta, but I found a lot of promise from the get-go. I was really into this game's vibe and what it brought to the table. Even with some minor futuristic elements, gadgets, and such, I felt like this story is very believable, and a situation like this could happen in real life any day now. I want to take a step back really quick before I jump headfirst into explaining my thoughts on the main gameplay in Dark Zone, and talk a little bit more about the game's main character, you. Or us, for that matter. I found myself wanting a little more from this character. There are some cool customization mechanics, which I'll talk about in a second, but other than the customization, I felt no real connection to my character that I've created. Maybe because there's no voice to my character, or possibly because there's not much that my character really does in the main story missions that helps out with the overarching story. But this is bound to change after the official release. Jumping into the game, there were some customization elements that weren't fully fleshed out, but enjoyable nonetheless. Like in any RPG, you are able to pick your gender and race. The beta didn't have many options to choose from. As a matter of fact, they were all randomized for you, but it's positive to note that this feature will most likely be in the game. They also had 3 different skill trees: medical, tech, and security, each with 1 to 2 abilities that you could unlock and use during the beta. Each ability has its own mini-tree to add little effects to each ability. You can unlock the add-ons to your abilities by upgrading different wings in your main base, also titled Medical, Tech, and Security. To upgrade wings, you can either pick up supplies that are associated with that wing, or complete different story missions that are also associated with those wings. In the beta, we had access to 2 story missions. One medical mission where you rescue a doctor and her team from a hostile gang, and a tech mission where you go underground to turn on power for your main base in an area that's been taken over by the cleaners, ex-sanitation workers turned murdering psychopaths. The missions each had their own challenges and were fun to play with or without a team, but to me, still felt a little constrained. Even though the pace of the game is different from most shooters, it still felt like I was moving into an area, ducking from cover to cover just to defend myself against a couple waves of enemies, pick up the loot, and move on to do the same thing in another location. Speaking of ducking from cover to cover, this leads me to the controls of the game. To me, I felt like the controls were a little clunky. Trying to move through doors, duck behind cover, or even trying to combat roll left something to be desired. It made me think of the controls of Gears of War and Mass Effect 3 had a baby, but the baby ended up having the same movement glitches as the Assassin's Creed games. Okay, maybe it's not that bad, but there were multiple times in PvE and in the Dark Zone where my character moved in a way I didn't want them to, and it cost me my life and, more importantly, my precious loot. Speaking of loot, anytime you pick up a new weapon or cool piece of armor, it feels like it actually changes something. This is a problem I had with Destiny, in which it felt like the game was purely decided on what weapon you had equipped and didn't really care about making armor pieces to counteract those weapons. Here, we have a system that lets you focus on firearms, which focuses on how much damage your weapon does, stamina, which affects your overall health, and electronics, which concerns the cooldown and overall effectiveness of your abilities. Now, the tricky part for me was understanding that just because a weapon, armor piece, or mod increases your stats, doesn't mean that it's actually stronger or better than any other piece you have. It took me quite a bit to understand this, and I kept getting decimated by enemies. But once I grasped this concept, I changed up my build and was able to compete with the best of them. It may be confusing for newcomers to RPGs to get used to, but don't let that deter you.
And now for the moment you've all been waiting for. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I present to you the Dark Zone.
Okay, so we all know that the Dark Zone is the Division's form of PvP. But what's awesome about this is that it's not just PvP, but everything about the game combined into one little area. In the contaminated areas inside the Dark Zone, you can find loot inside crates. You run into AI-controlled enemies, which you can kill for loot, and then, the icing on the cake, you can kill other players and take the loot they've picked up and take a portion of their Dark Zone credits, which you can buy weapons, armor, and mods from Dark Zone vendors. Packing all of this into one small area, though, can also be confusing. It was almost as if the beginning there was almost too much to do, and I didn't know where to start. But once I hooked up with a group, we easily figured out what we needed to do and got down to business. So here's how the Dark Zone works as far as PvP goes. All players in the Dark Zone are neutral at first entrance. You can go about your merry way, looting some caches and AI bodies you've killed throughout the Dark Zone. You become a rogue agent when you've shot another player more than twice, with some varying differences with ammo types, explosives, different weapons, etc. Now, when you become a rogue agent, all players in the Dark Zone can see your last known location on the minimap, and when they get close enough, they will see you on the minimap, and at that point, consider it rogue hunting season, boys! If you survive as a rogue agent for a long enough period of time, a manhunt is started. If that happens, your location is broadcast on the minimap in real time, and a waypoint is set on you and your team for all other players to hunt you down. The funnest thing to do, in my personal opinion, wasn't player hunting or getting loot. It was trying to extract the loot. In the Dark Zone, when you pick up loot, it doesn't just automatically go to your inventory, but into a biohazard case that you have to extract from different extraction points all throughout the Dark Zone map. Whenever you activate an extraction point, everyone on the map is notified and, if so inclined, can ambush you right before you extract your items. This created so much tension for me, and I found myself questioning any player who walked close to the extraction point that I was at, or vice versa, knowing that as soon as those poor players started to extract their loot, me and my teammates would jump all over them before they even got a chance. Either way, it was a lot of fun. So my overall thoughts are very positive of this game. The Division is a great change of pace with many things to offer a multitude of fans. It takes a little bit of a learning curve to figure out some of the mechanics and controls, but they're not too difficult to grasp. Even though there wasn't much of the main story gameplay, and the main character you play as isn't fully fleshed out or as customizable as I'd like him to be, I have faith that the guys and girls at Ubisoft know what they're doing. This game, from the beta alone, has my stamp of approval, and I recommend fans of any RPG to buy this game. I myself am running to pre-order this game with the Season Pass. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video was informative. You liked this video, let me know by dropping a like, a comment, and hit that subscribe button for future content, guys. And also make sure to check out my Twitter and Instagram pages so we can talk more about gaming, what you guys thought about The Division, and any other games that you'd like to see. Until next time, Joshy out.